Greetings, good evening, good afternoon, or good night to you. Today is Wednesday, February 27th, 2019. My name is Timothy Halloran. I am a human being. Or maybe a mammal, or perhaps a mineral. Not totally sure. It is a little murky. It is Pisces season. The sun entered Pisces on February 8th, and on March 20th, the sun will enter Aries during that magical moment known as the spring equinox. Because, of course, physical nature and astrology are the same. So, Pisces season. And in fact, Pisces time may be just beginning as we have a new moon approaching on March 6th, and just the day before, Mercury stations retrograde at the final degree of Pisces. We also have Uranus shifting out of Aries and into Taurus, where he will remain until 2025, these next couple of weeks. And so, let's begin. Where to start off? We'll begin with Venus. Relationships, interactions with other people, old friends, old bosses, old work associates can be being brought to the forefront these last couple of weeks. Venus conjoined Saturn on February 18th, joined Pluto on the 22nd, and joined the Moon's south node yesterday, February 26th. This can indicate a focus on relationships. Certainly, we've been taking relationships more seriously. This can be a time of recommitting, renewing our vows, or it can indeed be a time of shifting in terms of friends and relationships. It is a time of adjustment, a time of making necessary changes. When Venus conjoins with Pluto, there is sometimes a theme of outgrowing old relationships, but in particular, outgrowing old relationship dynamics. Not just who, but how we're connecting and sharing with others. With Venus conjunct Pluto, careful this last week not to burn bridges, and this next week not to burn bridges. Venus will enter the sign of Aquarius and square Uranus the same day, Friday, March 1st. So again, there is this need for independence, breaking free of any limiting constraints. But on a deeper level, this Venus, South Node, Saturn, Pluto is about ending any patterns or themes of oppression or any patriarchal dynamics, societally imprisoning expectations or obligations. You have to do this much, you have to do it this way, in any way that forces us to conform to other people's expectations, or to simply not have an emotionally supportive group or relationship. That is part of what we can be seeing and addressing and changing these weeks. If we're not able to share our values or be supported in who we are, this can really be a period where we're noticing those limitations. And certainly Venus square to Uranus wants to break free, wants to be independent. She wants to go to the beat of her own drum in Aquarius. And when Venus is in Aquarius, there is also this redefining what relationship is. It is an experimental period of exploring how to bridge our total uniqueness, our total individuality with relationships. So that way we can be free within our relationships, our work associates, rather than free from relationships or unable to interact with others or being isolated. Uranus at the final degrees of Aries and moving into Taurus on March 6th is indeed this culmination of a need for freedom, independence, breaking free, and being our totally unique, individuated self. Uranus is our total individuated self. Our soul, throughout all of its past lifetimes and all of its unique experiences, has shaped us to be a totally unique being. And so this next couple weeks, Uranus moving into Taurus, completing its transit of Aries that has been ongoing since 2011, is about individuation, freedom, sexual liberation, and really allowing us to be ourselves, to allow our freak flag to fly, To be an eccentric is to be our true nature. Okay, so there's this freeing up and pushing on boundaries with Venus square that Uranus at the final degrees of Aries. And again, there is this important need to be free within our relationships, to end any patterns of conforming, limitation, or just simply self-sacrificing to other people's expectations and needs. That way we can create mutually supportive, emotionally supportive, safe space where we can share our values with others that appreciate similar values, the others, the like minds, and have a sense of really working together in a way that is oriented to the future, that is progressive, that is wanting to improve and not just drag our heels or do things the old, rusty way. So for example, that Venus entering Aquarius, squaring Uranus the first week of March, there can really be this theme of breaking out of any limiting societal molds, cookie-cutter expectations, or defying any societal prejudices, stigmas, gender stigmas, limiting definitions of who we should be, so on and so forth. Now, Pisces season, the most surreal, psychedelic, dreamlike, confusing, uncertain, go with the flow, everything's melting, dissolving, final sign of the zodiac, in which all of the other signs merge back into that omega, that final sign of the zodiac. And so when it comes to Pisces season, there is always this need for finding healthy boundaries and a balance between union and separation in terms of our interactions. And again, this is the experiment in our relationships. The feeling, the sensitivity of Pisces is almost a dissociative merging with the surrounding environments, the surrounding places, okay? So, for example, in the world of therapy and counseling, it is so important to have those. This is the time limit. This is my schedule, this is when I'm available, this is when I'm not available. Because when you're going into other people's reality, when everything's starting to merge, there is this bleed through that happens. There is transfer and exchange that happens, and we don't just want to be like a giant sponge soaking up every little thing in the world. There's a lot of crummy pollution and things we probably don't want sticking all over us. So there is this need to very much find a center in ourselves. And we have a beautiful new moon aligned with this endeavor coming up on March 6th, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. A new moon at 15 degrees of Pisces join Neptune and asteroid Vesta. This is a new moon to incubate, to find our center, to self-reflect and tune in with that point that connects us to the greater whole. Going to God, going to Spirit. And there is a huge opportunity with the new moon, with any new moon, to hit the reset button, to find a new attunement that will unfold through the forthcoming lunar cycle. Well, this is a deep reset button. This is about finding attunement with that guiding hand, with that divine flow which pours through us easily and effortlessly, because Pisces unwinds us into our inherent essence. And we must allow ourselves to unwind. We must allow ourselves to let go, because the day before this new moon, Mercury stations retrograde at the final degree of Pisces and is going to retrograde back to this almost the exact same degree of this new moon on March 28th. And so there is this surreal unwinding and what can be extremely nebulous and uncertain need to go with the flow, And I'm sure you've heard the stereotype when it comes to Mercury retrograde. Communication breakdowns, technological issues, losing things, finding things. And astrologers tend to overhype these things to get attention, to get clients. Well, this may be a little bit more of that stereotypical Mercury retrograde. Indeed, Mercury in Pisces, communication gets real confusing. Again, think of Pisces and that bleed through and that hypersensitivity to every little ethereal thing. And it gets real murky, it gets real fuzzy. So absolutely, this can be a confusing time in terms of communication, in terms of technology, in terms of traveling. We have to be as flexible as humanly possible this month of March. And if we can go with the flow, there may be hidden blessings that even come out of the debris, the chaos, the directionlessness, but it does require a huge degree of surrender. And surrender, by the way, means you lose something, you don't expect it to come back, but in that openness to, I let go, it may not come back. That openness has a funny way of allowing something to come back, even if it's in a different way than how we originally expect it. That's some of the magic of Pisces. The magic of Pisces is 100% do not force. It is finding the path of least resistance. It is going with the flow. It is taking a trust fall backwards and allowing the lazy man's river to carry us forward. So funny synchronicity with this Mercury retrograde. This morning, I lost my Mercury ring. And I looked everywhere for it, dug through everything, got really frustrated, then gave up. And as I was leaving to shoot this video, I stepped on the Mercury ring. And so, little funny synchronicity, just let it go. It may come back when we least expect it. It may not. But that type of fluidity, that type of openness can actually allow us to find a deeper center and allow us to honor that sensitivity of Pisces. We must honor our sensitivity this month. Our body's needs, our emotional needs, those healthy boundaries are integral in Pisces season. One of the shadows of Pisces can be a clinginess. Feeling this bleed through, this loss, this uncertainty. There can be a tendency for those types of easily swept off their feet souls to just be like leaves blowing around in the wind, tumbling, no sense of control, and there may therefore be an unhealthy tendency to try and grab on other people. Oh, you need to save me. Oh, I am a victim. I'm being drowned. I'm being dug away. This new moon is the new moon for us to find the center in ourselves, to find that completion within our own connection and our own attunement to spirit, that which we are always a part of, which is in fact greater, knows more, sees more than we ever could. And again, there is this trusting that higher part of ourself. It is like we are all the fingers, the limbs, the extensions of larger extremities that are connected to larger extremities, being like twigs or sticks on branches on a tree. Pisces is the tree, the trunk, the core, the center. And by tuning into that center, we find ourselves grounded, we find ourselves channels, and that divine flow can pour through us and move through us like water or CO2 and oxygen through the trunk of a tree by allowing ourselves to be carried by that which is bigger than ourselves, by finding that center in our deepest, most mystical, spiritual truth. There is a theme of discovering, exploring to uncover this core truth. There is a theme of a search for meaning through this Mercury retrograde. And again, this new moon in Pisces is going to kick off this search for meaning. We want to sow the seed intention in our heart's core, in our divine vision, in those be-all, end-all goals, in what purpose we hold in terms of what it means to be a spiritual soul, what it means to be a human being, a helper, a servant on the planet. We want to sow a seed, intention, through our feeling, through our heart on this new moon, which can unfold through this search of meaning, through this search for orientation, through this forthcoming Mercury retrograde. So this last week, Mercury joined Neptune and squared Jupiter. Later, mid-March, retrograde Mercury will square Jupiter again, and then Mercury will station direct right on top of Neptune the last 2 weeks of March. So this Neptune square to Jupiter theme is very much being explored through this Mercury retrograde. As we've talked about before, this Jupiter squared Neptune is a dissolving of old spiritual philosophical orientations, so to discover a more meaningful, more useful orientation to the truth. This is an exploration of the truth through an unwinding, and again, a dissolving of what may be old spiritual beliefs, spiritual confusion, any ideas or belief systems that are in fact not useful, or misleading, or confusing us, or involving any themes of self-sacrifice or religious fundamentalism. Essentially, again, we're finding our center point. And this is a beautiful new moon for sowing this intention, although it will open this exploration, as this new moon is not only conjoined Neptune, but also asteroid Vesta. And asteroid Vesta is a highly Virgo asteroid. Virgo is the opposite sign of Pisces, which can bring a fair degree of balance to this new moon. Why? Because Vesta is focus. Vesta in Pisces is focus on that purpose that gives us a sense of meaning by contributing some service back to the greater good. And that's what this search for meaning is about this forthcoming month. How can we align our own soul with this intention of being a part of serving the greater good? And really, as our souls evolve throughout many, many lifetimes, we do discover this purpose and this role for being, which, although will be different for each and every unique soul, will ultimately lead us into discovering some form of selfless service that we can offer back to the world, back to the collective, which ends up being the greatest source of bliss and enjoyment that there is possible to experience. That is transcendental spiritual bliss by finding alignment with our service that gives us a connection to spirit, where that spiritual energy and power begins to flow through us and animate us. We surrender to that spirit which nearly possesses us, and we feel full. We feel complete. And just like a fountainhead, we radiate. That love, that bliss spills over and touches and affects and uplifts surrounding hearts. That's the intention of this new moon. And the Vesta conjoinment with Neptune is this opportunity to focus on a part that gives us that sense of universal significance. Vesta in Pisces can be the universal world server, particularly conjoined Neptune. So again, set your intentions for the deepest, the most mystical depth of your own heart. The inner blue flame, that mystical voice that has no definition. I mean, Pisces is undefined, unknown, never will be understood, is the nature of Pisces. Pisces is inconceivable. As soon as you give a label to Pisces, it starts to become more inaccurate from what it actually is. We say Pisces is union, Pisces is love, Pisces is God, and then Pisces says, yes, and I'm also not love, I'm also not union, and I'm also not God, and I'm also God, and I'm also union, and I'm also everything. It is yes and no, this or that, in and out, inconceivably simultaneously. Pisces defies all logic, all understanding, yet it is ultimate truth. So set sails into that depth, into that ultimate meaning, and be prepared for some stripping away of some of those oversimplified, overly structured, overly limited beliefs or orientations that may be unrealistic or may not actually be serving this purpose of being a healer in the world. Asteroid Vesta is the healer. Vesta refers to the Vestal virgins of the Roman paradigm that were the high priestesses of that given era. And they were master healers. They worked with medicines, body, sexual energy. Vesta can deal with sexual energy. A part of this new moon with Uranus completing Aries is sexual liberation by finding a spiritual orientation to our own sexual nature. And our own sexual nature will be different, will be unique per each and every soul that will be connected to that soul's nature and therefore connected to that soul's potential service to the world as well. So Pisces merges with everything. Pisces gives a basis to everything. It is the ultimate foundation that gives a meaning to everything in our life by spiritualizing everything. And everything can be turned into an offering back to Spirit. Everything can. And this new moon is about finding that orientation so we can make our life spiritual. We can make every part and parcel of our life an offering in some way. And this exploration of depth, again, will allow us to see, you know what? This benefits the social good, and this may not. This may be confused. This may be outdated. This is just making me feel weird or scared or paranoid. That is a level that's getting dissolved, that's getting stripped away. Even if there's a level getting dissolved, oh, I thought that I was this and I'm not. I thought that this was the truth and I'm not. Sometimes this leads into a confusion or an uncertainty that is in fact healthy because we're finding a deeper orientation to reality by letting go of what we thought that reality was. And while we're in that in-between phase of letting go and that mysterious essence is filling us in, we may not know what that new thing is. But the surrendering, the opening, the letting go will allow that divine flow to come in and introduce itself to us. Now, with the square to Jupiter, again, there is really a need to look at any outdated philosophies. And just as a reflection, I mean these outdated philosophies are really entrenched in all the New Age movement, the spiritual movements, all the mainstream religions, even the fields of science, psychology, medicine, the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, we all have something, right? These different subgroups, these cultures, we all have some truth, we all have some orientation, and we're missing a whole lot. Nobody knows everything. Nobody has everything figured out. But there is a creative tension with this square between Jupiter, this new moon, Neptune, and Vesta. This need for discernment. And the key particularly with this Vesta-Jupiter square is discerning, does this actually benefit social welfare? Is this something I can contribute back to the world in some way that is actually useful? My recommendation to you, and of course you can throw this out if it doesn't resonate with your heart, because I would never want someone to just simply believe the words coming out of my mouth as if I'm some spiritual authority. Hell no, I'm not even sure if I'm an animal, a person, or a mineral, so take it with a grain of salt. But my recommendation is, if the idea, if the belief has no given function, no given use, throw it out. If it's some conspiracy theory, some paranoid belief, and all it's generating is fear and catatonic, paralyzing, I don't know, it's probably not a great belief. It's probably not a great idea. It's probably not going to benefit social welfare. Okay? So Vesta is about finding that role that is some service that can actually help others, that is healthy, that is useful, that has some practical function. And we can bridge that function, that usefulness, with a spiritual orientation that has meaning. This fills me up. It gives me a sense of significance. It makes me feel like a good person. I am bringing goodness into the world. This new moon desires to bring in more goodness, more compassion, more medicine. How can we focus? How can we anchor? How can we integrate more of that divine flow, more of that medicine. And there is an elimination of the distractions, the interferences. This religion says you have to go A, B, C to D, and then you can get to E and F, and it's just like, well, there's no one size fits all. The shadow of Jupiter is the one size fits all. Oh, this is what a healthy body looks like. This is what a healthy practice looks like. This is what a healthy religious ritual looks like, And it's always biased, always. If it's a one-size-fits-all, if it's overly sheltered, only the people in this circle are the knowers. We know the truth. Everybody on the outside of the circle, they're lost. They haven't received the divine word of so-and-so, It's just a bias. It's a prejudice. It cripples compassion. It cripples unconditional love. This is a period where we can recognize and discern, wait a minute, is this coming from old, outdated beliefs coming from the world, or is this actually helping me to be a good person? Religious fundamentalism, religious fanaticism, you may have noticed, doesn't help people become good people. Even though they may really believe that. There's a forcefulness there. This is the truth. We need to get everybody here. Everybody needs to be saved. This is the one-size-fits-all way to do it. No. We're letting all that shit go. It's really, really unhealthy. It's toxic in the world of spirituality and beliefs. And this New Age movement may be called the Old Age movement, sincerely, in many respects. We are sowing the seeds for the New Age, and simultaneously, as we're sowing these seeds, we're uprooting the old weeds from the Old Age. That's what the accurate objective viewing of the New Age movement, that's what it really is. It's not all New Age. It's sowing seeds for New Age and uprooting the roots of the Old Age, and we've got to do that work, and it's not finished. It's not even close to finished, to be totally honest. In fact, I would say we're still somewhat in the age of Pisces. The ages don't shift overnight. It is a very gradual process where very slowly the entire population of humanity shifts its fundamental spiritual beliefs and orientation to nature and orientation to God. You may have noticed that has not happened overnight. It's a slow, gradual process. It requires sowing seeds. It requires throwing out the weeds that are no longer serving us. This is 2,000 years old. It worked then. We're in a different era. It's no longer useful. It's no longer serving us. This is 2,000 years old, and yet it is always fundamentally true. It is inherent within the human nature. It's inherent within the nature of life. That's what we're keeping. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're not discarding religion or spirituality or all the beautiful things that are going on. We are finding a deeper center now. We're finding an anchor to have one foot in this world. That's our service. That's our offering to others. That's our medicine. And one foot in the spiritual world. That's where we fill ourselves up. That's where we find our center. That's where we orient ourselves to that vision. Pisces is the be-all, end-all goal. This is where you're evolving. This is where your spirit is taking you. That's the focus that we can orient, so we can have one foot in that world. Again, the balance between union and separation. We have to retreat, meditate, fill up our glass, center ourselves in whatever unique way works for you, gives you that creative center, attunes you to that divine flow, one foot in the earth, sharing the medicine, being good, feeling good, offering good, and it becomes automatic. It becomes effortless in Pisces, because Pisces is our ultimate nature, and ultimately we therefore surrender to our inherent nature. Opening, surrendering, no force in Pisces. The moon's north node is in Cancer. This is a practice through this next year. Does the world, does the societies, cultures surrounding us make it easy to go with the flow? No. The world, culture, society says it's a dog-eat-dog world, it's a fight to survive, it's a mass production, mass consumer society, so slam more coffee, eat more fast food, do more, earn more. We have to make sure we're not getting manipulated by societal standards, our bosses, our parents, these worldly expectations and obligations that are in fact crippling the whole species of humanity. Rather, we are those way pavers and initiators that are sowing seeds for the future in many respects by defying these societal standards. Speaking of which, Uranus, again, completing its transit of Aries. Big deal for Uranus. And Uranus in Aries is the way paver, the initiator, the future coming in. Uranus enters Taurus on March 6th and will remain in Taurus through 2025. So just a quick foreshadowing of the next near decade to come. Uranus in Taurus this next 10 years is going to bring a lot of global economic agricultural revolution. Okay, changes, instability, new innovation being brought in to bring more stability. There is a wisdom of simplicity with Uranus in Taurus. How to reduce so to become more self-sovereign, more free, more independent, and capable of generating our own resources. Capable of generating our own necessary community, our own necessary money, to make it easy, to make it simple, in ways improved. Okay, Taurus rules the senses. We've been in a world that is almost sensually desensitized. I mean, this dog-eat-dog world, we don't know how to relax. We don't know how to enjoy. We don't know how to tune into abundance because we're taught that abundance is how many decimal points are in your bank account, for example. Well, Taurus is simple and easy. It's the wisdom of the Garden of Eden. This planet is a sphere of abundance. You stick a seed in the earth, apply sunshine and water, and a plant comes up with hundreds of more seeds to create hundreds of more plants. This earth was meant to be a paradise. All we would have had to do is take care of the plants and animals. We'd already be there. So we're getting back to the garden with Uranus and Taurus. Yes, there can be some restlessness. There can be some instability. We're figuring out global economies. We're figuring out agriculture. And just so you have the heads up, this wisdom of simplification, how to generate resources and be stable and confident on our own, that's going to be a major focus point for the whole world. And so, if that excites you, maybe you can be a little ahead of the game and ride that wave of evolution into the future. Uranus is in Taurus for the 10 years to come. Much more on Uranus in Taurus to come next time. Quick announcement, we still have a raffle going for raising money for my friend Megan with EDS. You can click the link below. We will be announcing winners on March 1st. You can join my Patreon community. We're having a Q&A coming up this weekend as well. So if any of this video brings up any personal questions, you want to share your chart, ask a question about your chart, join my Patreon community and you can ask a question at any point. Join our live Q&A, written horoscopes, transit calendar, and more. Again, I'm wishing all the best to you. May you find that inner peace. May you find that inner center. And coming together when we are integrated in our own service. May we find that service that we have to give back to the collective in our own hearts. So again, please do take care. Wishing you all the best.